Father burst into a string of endless admonishments, insisting that Nikita ought to find a summer job, complaining of how he and his mother were weary of Nikita's idleness. Nikita listened, imagining his father's lectures as echoes in a hollow corridor, never quite reaching him. He was already trying to make money, just without much success. But that was the way life went sometimes. There'd been so many plans, so many hopes. He thought he could ride a wave of success, become a famous blogger, and rake in a small fortune. Then, perhaps, his father's voice could be silenced once and for all. Yet here they were, locked in the same routine of the old days. Work from 8 to 5, clock in, clock out, back and forth through the factory gates. Damn. What was he supposed to do now? Nikita stretched, feeling his muscles strain as he slowly pushed himself up from the table, deciding to engage in a short sprint from the living room to the kitchen and back again. His mother bustled about the kitchen, something sizzling under a lid on the stove. The smell of it made his stomach stir with hunger. Mom. Oh, Nikita, you're awake. Why are you home, Mom? Not feeling well. Took a day off. Fried you some eggs with sausage, just the way you like it. Want some? Grandma Aina called, his mother said, sinking wearily into a chair. She said her heart was acting up. Would you visit her, Nikita? Grandma? Of course. Nikita loved his grandmother. She didn't nag him like his father did or burden him with work. In the morning, she would already have fresh pastries on the table and would have fetched milk from the neighbors. But she lived far out, and the signal there was spotty, not just for internet, but even for making a call. Maybe he could take Marinka with him, even though she was rather dim. She was hot as hell, like grandma's pies in the morning. Nikita squinted and swallowed involuntarily. He could also film some videos and create a travel show on his channel. He might gain more subscribers. The places around his grandmother's were sinister, and she used to frighten him with her childhood tales of terror. He decided to go. The journey took almost the whole day. Marinka was amazed by every drunkard on the train and every insect on a blade of grass. She was such an airhead, but that was her. I should leave her, thought Nikita. They reached the village around evening milking time. Nikita had remembered how time was measured in the village and, upon arriving, automatically adjusted to the local rhythm. Want to hire someone to dig up your garden or fix a door? Settle the payment in bottles of liquor. We send Grandma some moonshine, and it lasts her the whole year. I'm her courtesy deliverer, Nikita said, smiling broadly, the clinking bottles in his backpack. Marinka giggled quietly, wrinkling her freckled nose. Grandma was weeding the garden. Grandma, Nikita shouted. She spun around abruptly, waving her arms as she hurried to greet them. She's grown older, Nikita noted. She looked darker, almost as if she'd been burned. Perhaps she'd been under the sun all day. Nikitushka, my dear boy, you're here, my good one. Oh, Grandma paused abruptly when she spotted Marinka. Nikita chuckled to himself. He had expected such a reaction. In the village, you wouldn't often come across such an ethereal being. Green hair, as if left neglected in the shadows, a nose ring, black nails, and tattered shorts. Seeing such a sight in a nightmare would make you wake up drenched in sweat. Have you brought a bride, Nikitushka? Good, good. It's time for you to settle down. Can't spend all your time on the internet. Grandma's piercing gaze never left Marinka. Like a cow up for auction, thought Nikita. Marinka lowered her gaze under Grandma's scrutiny, her face flushing with embarrassment, the thick layer of makeup failing to hide it. Grandma had been waiting for them, her kitchen filled with heavenly aromas, perfect pies with bird cherry, shanji with potatoes and raspberries, and fresh milk straight from the neighboring cows. Nikita wasn't used to such delicacies, but Marinka drank it greedily, as if she feared it might be snatched from her. Grandma chuckled softly, patting Marinka on the head. "Eat up, children, eat up. Tomorrow, I'll make you some green borscht. The sorrel is already ripe, and we'll roll out some pastries with fillings. The bathhouse is ready. Wash away the dust from your journey and get some rest." The bathhouse was a treat. Marinka let out excited squeals as the birch broom brushed against her skin, throwing provocative glances at Nikita, an otherworldly apparition, her form perfect, but her mind dull. After the bath, they sipped herbal tea sweetened with last year's honey. Marinka's hair coiled into tight curls, her freckles shimmering like stars on her clear nose, and her skin pale and delicate like a cabbage butterfly's wing. The next morning, Nikita woke to the soft murmur of voices in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows, the clock on the wall ticked softly, and a fly buzzed against the glass. Somewhere in the distance, cows lowed in the fields. Marinka was already up, helping Grandma shape little baskets of dough for the pastries. They came out clumsy and uneven, but Grandma laughed warmly, showing Marinka how to crimp the edges properly, and recounting local tales of abandoned shrines, bloodthirsty mermaids, and spirits that haunted the area. Nikita knew these stories well from childhood. Marinka, however, listened with wide eyes, completely forgetting her hapless pastries. The day promised to be harsh and unrelenting, so they decided to escape to the river before the scorching sun could burn the earth to a crisp. Grandma watched them from the window, whispering something softly and shaking her head as if sensing impending trouble. They walked through a field where the grass had already grown tall, tickling their bare feet. Marinka, naturally, plucked vibrant wildflowers and wove them into a wreath, attempting to place it on Nikita's head, but he scowled and brushed her away. The river gurgled slowly, its surface shimmering under the sun's fierce gaze, blinding them with its reflections. They splashed in the cool water, laughing and playing, stirring up murky silt from the bottom. "Will you share your girl?" Nikita spun around suddenly, stopping in the middle of the river. Marinka, startled, hid behind his back, peering out with narrowed eyes. On the shore stood three locals. Nikita vaguely remembered them from his childhood visits. Perhaps they had once run through dusty streets together or leapt from the roofs of woodsheds in winter. The memories were like shadows, insubstantial and hazy. Yet the threat from these men was palpable and tangible. "Oh, city boy, is that you?" drawled a long-haired young man as he sauntered closer. "Visiting your grandma, Gosha?" Nikita recalled. "Yes, we arrived yesterday to stay for a while," he replied, feeling Marinka grip his arm with her nails, her body trembling whether from fear or the chill in the air. He couldn't say. "Well then, come by this evening, all right. Why linger around Grandma's place?" Long-haired Gosha spat again, turned on his heel, and ambled toward the village. His silent entourage followed, shooting malevolent glances at Nikita and Marinka as they went. Grandmother, as promised, had a pot of thick green soup ready by the time they arrived, along with freshly baked meat pies, infused with fragrant herbs. After a hearty meal, a drowsy, heavy slumber settled over them. They awoke to find that the evening had enveloped the surroundings in shadows. Grandmother was once again bustling in the kitchen, whispering softly under her breath, as if invoking ancient spirits. "What's cooking, Grandma?" Making a potion for Marinka, Nikita drained half a bottle of kvass in one gulp, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Oh, Nikitushka." Grandmother chuckled. "What potion? Are you saying I have a cauldron in the barn? Marinka will manage just fine without any potion." Grandmother winked at Nikita. "She's pure, like the ethereal glow of the moon." Wise old grandma. Nikita thought again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As the night descended, it became clear that there was little to occupy their time. Marinka busied herself, helping grandmother weed the garden, gently swaying the heads of blooming plants. Nikita set about chopping wood, his footing occasionally slipping dangerously close. "Go take a walk, you two," suggested grandmother. "I'll handle things here." "Hey, remember Gosha, the tall, dark one with the wild hair?" "What's to remember? He lives on the next street over. I see him every day." "Why do you ask? He invited us over." "Is he all right?" "Why wouldn't he be? You played with him when you were young. Go on, have a chat. Why sit here with me?" A group of young people sat on logs in front of Gosha's house, their conversation punctuated by sinister laughter and the crackling of sunflower seeds, washed down with beer. "Hey, man." Gosha's eyes gleamed with an almost inhuman, oily shine. His handshake left Nikita wanting to wipe his hand on his pants, but he resisted the urge to make any sudden movements. "Pour a drink for our friend." The conversation didn't flow easily. What was there to talk about? Their childhood, playing in the snow. Nikita began to feel the effects of the beer, his eyelids growing heavy as though something stronger had been mixed into his drink. After the second mug, his mind buzzed, and he could barely distinguish the words being spoken. Marinka's anxious gaze flickered before him, contrasted with the cold, cat-like glint of Gosha's eyes. Dusk was settling in, the last rosy clouds slowly fading away on the horizon, and the whine of mosquitoes blended with a ringing in Nikita's ears. The ringing intensified, the world around him swirling and shimmering like an old childhood carousel. It seemed as if Marinka was screaming, the drunken group howling and laughing, while the carousel spun faster and faster, descending into a frenzied cackle, until Nikita tumbled into pitch-black oblivion. Morning arrived with the sun beating harshly against the windows, as if it were seeking retribution for Nikita's reckless behavior. Along with the sunlight, the angry crows of a rooster echoed right under the windows. Grandmother banged about the kitchen with pots and pans. "Awake, Nikitushka. Where's Marinka?" His mouth was parched, feeling like cats had walked across his tongue. "Which Marinka?" Grandmother's surprise seemed genuine, as if she had no idea who he was talking about. "Marinka. I came here with her green hair and black nails." "What are you saying, Grandma?" "Oh, Nikitushka. It's time for you to think about getting married." Grandmother shook her head. "Are you seeing things now? You came here alone, and last night you were out drinking with Gosha like some wild creature. That Gosha, he's a menace, brewing moonshine and giving it to the whole neighborhood. I told you not to go, to help me out around the house instead." Maybe Nikita was slowly losing his mind. Schizophrenia could sneak up on you just like that. Nikita searched the entire house, the bathhouse, even taking a walk down to the river just in case. But there was no sign of Marinka or her presence. He went down to the river, expecting to find their tracks in the sand. Yet his hopes were dashed. The shoreline was devoid of any tracks, as if no living creature had even passed by. Nikita sat down in astonishment on the grass. The river gurgled cheerfully below, crickets chirped, and birds sang a peaceful, rustic scene. Perhaps it would have been comforting and calming, if not for the nagging feeling that he was quietly losing his sanity. "Hello there, city boy. Finally coming back to the land of the living." Nikita jolted awake, launching himself at the shaggy-haired figure, clutching his throat in a vice grip. "Where is she? Where?" Gosha's cronies wrestled Nikita away, and Gosha brushed off the dust as he approached Nikita, the stale odor of alcohol on his breath. "Have you completely lost it, city boy? Who's she? Your stash? Or maybe you're messing with dolls now?" The group burst out laughing, shoving Nikita aside and strolling leisurely towards the village. Totally gone off the deep end. Gosha spat over his shoulder. Nikita sat in the grass for what seemed like an eternity, rocking back and forth, clutching his head in his hands. The village echoed with the lowing of cows being milked and the crowing of roosters. The road was covered in dust, and the buttercups nodded their heads as though they were scolding him. The pounding headache was unbearable. Something crunched under his foot. Nikita bent down and examined a torn bracelet in the dust. It was Marinka's. She had been wearing one just like it on her wrist. Who else could it belong to? Gosha or Grandma? Then a sharp realization struck Nikita. Aside from his grandmother and the trio of delinquents, he hadn't seen any other people in the village. Sounds had been present, but no living souls. The thought first sent a wave of heat through him, then a chill. His mouth dried up, and his thoughts swirled like a murder of crows. He stared at the bracelet and couldn't bring himself to move. Finally, he crawled his way to his grandmother's gate. At the end of the street, a dark figure loomed, wavering like a mirage in the heat. Nikita blinked, and the apparition vanished. Inside the house, his grandmother was arguing with someone in a low voice. Nikita crept up to the door, careful not to make the floorboards creak. It's too early. The neighbors will start looking. People will gather around from all over. My Galka's a fool. She doesn't see what's under her nose. She might have kept him here. Why are you sticking up for him, Anna? Did your conscience wake up? You've already gotten rid of your daughter. Now you're shielding this snot-nosed brat. Time is running out. Decide. Tomorrow is the last night. If you don't give him up, you'll go instead. You've lived long enough. The door swung open suddenly, nearly hitting Nikita in the forehead. Gosha stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes now cat-like, sharp and sinister. Nikitushka, Gosha said you dozed off by the river. He came to check on you. See if you're all right. Here's some milk from the neighbor. I don't drink milk, Nikita whispered hoarsely. His grandmother could no longer hide her intentions. Nikita scooped a ladle of water from the well, drank it down, and then collapsed into unconsciousness. Nikita came to as twilight shadows blanketed the entire street, drawn back to consciousness by his grandmother's scream. She was shouting at someone by the gate, but she was too afraid to venture outside. The same twisted figure Nikita had glimpsed earlier that day loomed beneath the windows. The gaunt old woman fixed her piercing gaze upon the window, seemingly staring right through it at the bewildered Nikita. Grandmother Anya unleashed a torrent of expletives at the old woman, words that Nikita had never heard before, but she refused to step beyond the gate. The old woman stood for another minute or two, seemingly making sure Nikita was fully awake and comprehending his predicament. She then turned to grandmother and spat out her words, cold and staccato. One night left, Anna. Choose now whose side you're on. There won't be another chance. And then she vanished, as if dissolving into thin air. Nikita, disoriented and weakened, collapsed back onto the bed. Grandmother shuffled slowly into the room, settled onto a chair, and sat in silence under his probing gaze. At last, she seemed to steel herself and began her tale. Anna had been beautiful and hardworking, but also fiercely headstrong. She chose her own suitor without hesitation. It didn't stop her that Stepan was in love with the quiet Anastasia. She was determined to marry him, come what may. Yet Stepan still pined for Anastasia, and the wedding date was set. Anna clenched her teeth, crying out her rage into her pillow at night, and finally resolved to do something drastic. Beyond the far fields, near the ruins of an old mill, lived an ancient witch known as Sichika. She was the miller's daughter, and rumors said that her father had consorted with dark forces and sired her with a mermaid. The miller had died long ago, but the villagers continued to avoid his daughter. They believed she practiced witchcraft, and girls and women would seek her out at night for potions and remedies to rid themselves of unwanted children. The witch would drown the fetus, and after birth in the depths of the water, feeding demons. Anna didn't put much stock in the rumors, being a modern woman, not some ignorant village girl. But when desperation grips someone, they'll try anything. She gathered a humble gift for the old woman, climbed over the fence, and set off across the field as night fell. A dense mist rolled in from the river, concealing her dark, secret quest. Grandmother sat by the edge of the dark, murky pond, her gaze heavy and penetrating. To Anna, it seemed as though the witch's eyes flickered with an otherworldly fire. "I've come," Anna stammered, her voice trembling with fear. "I see that. But do you know, girl, that it is a great sin to ensnare another woman's man?" Anna lowered her eyes. "What did you bring? Show me." The old woman delved into the bundle, pulling out bread and vegetables, then tossed them onto the ground with a derisive laugh. "What good are your offerings to me? I need flesh, innocent infants." The crows cawed in eerie harmony with her laughter, while the howls and cries from the forest beyond the pond sent shivers down Anna's spine. She spun around, ready to flee back to the village, but the grandmother's sinewy, bony hand grasped her suddenly, pulling her close and breathing hot, fetid air into her face. "Are you ready to give everything for the man you want?" Anna stared in shock at the witch. "What do you want?" "Your soul, naturally. But yours is too small, too inconsequential. Bring me a pure human being, innocent as the first snow. Deliver me an infant and drown it in the pond. Then Stepan will be yours." Anna recoiled in horror, and when she blinked, she was suddenly alone in the middle of the field. No old woman, no bundle, no cries. Shrouded in fog, she returned home and collapsed onto her bed. From then on, the witch's words haunted Anna. Each news of a newborn in the village felt like a blade to her throat. Happiness seemed so close, yet so unattainable. As the day of Anastasia and Stepan's wedding drew near, Anna couldn't sleep at night. She lay sprawled out on her overheated bed, consumed by her thoughts. Kidnapping a baby and drowning it in the pond was horrifying, but the thought of losing Stepan forever gnawed at her. Then a revelation struck her. The witch wanted a pure soul, but it didn't have to be an infant. Anastasia was simple and pure, never harming anyone. She would cry over a crushed ant. Anna put her plan into action. She befriended Anastasia, whispering that Stepan would always be tempted by other girls. As Anastasia's youth faded, Stepan would leave her for someone else. But if Anastasia was brave enough to wash her face in the mill pond's waters on the night before the wedding, her beauty would last until her dying day. In the end, Anastasia believed her friend and agreed to go to the pond at night. Anastasia leaned over the still water to scoop up some, and Anna shoved her in. In the morning, Anastasia's parents discovered her absence, and the entire village joined the search. They combed through all the surrounding forests, ravines, rivers, and wells, but the girl was never found. Stepan mourned for about a month, and then, to everyone's surprise, married Anna. At first, Anna found happiness in her marriage, but soon the nightmare began. Stepan started drinking heavily. In his drunken state, he was terrifying, beating Anna even when she was already pregnant. That time, she lost her child and nearly drowned in her own blood, hearing the witch's mocking laughter in her delirium. "Give up the child, give it up," the old woman shrieked. Soon after, war erupted, and Stepan was drafted into the army, never to return home again. Anna received his death notice, tucked it away, and never spoke of Stepan again. After the war, many men did not come back home. The women aged and withered, but Anna remained as young as she had been in her youth. The villagers eyed her suspiciously, but soon many passed away or were taken away by their children, and Anna was left alone in the village. Then new people began to appear in the village. They seemed human at first glance, but upon closer inspection, something was off. There was a supernatural aura about them, a mist-like presence. Their eyes were dead, black, and unfathomable. Anna even went to church, got baptized, brought back icons, and avoided going near the doors at night. And then, one day, Stepan reappeared in the village. When Anna saw him, she froze in the middle of the road, clutching her scarf to her mouth. "Stepan," she gasped. The man turned around, looking her up and down. "You've made a mistake," he said. "My name is Ivan. My wife and I recently moved here." "Have you lived here long?" "All my life," Anna replied. Ivan showed no signs of being sinister, which put Anna at ease. Soon, they became close neighbors, so close that within a year, Anna found herself pregnant. Ivan reacted coldly to the news. He said, "Who knows whose child you're carrying? If you tell my wife, I'll strangle you and the child." His eyes burned with a deadly anger as he spoke. Anna went to the hospital in the city, but it was too late for an abortion, and so Galia, Nikita's mother, was born. On the 7th day after giving birth, when Anna had already returned to the village, an unexpected visitor arrived. The witch stood beneath her windows, hesitant to enter. "Give me the innocent soul," she whispered. Anna, holding her child, stood by the icons all night on the edge of consciousness. "Listen, girl, if you don't give me this child, I will take the next one. There's no escaping me." The next morning, Anna took her daughter to an orphanage. When Galina grew up, she visited her mother and explained how she had to give up her child due to the village's dire conditions, and how much she had missed her. Galia forgave her mother and even visited her from time to time. Later, she brought Nikita to Anna, which scared her deeply, and she forbade bringing the child back. Anna would visit the city when she could, but she never allowed them into the village. Therefore, Nikita never played with other boys in the snow, never ran to the river, and never gathered berries in the woods. Nikita sat with his mouth agape, stunned by what he had just heard. When his grandmother finished her tale, he swallowed, his lips dry. "Grandma, are you telling me fairy tales now? Where's Marinka? Why are you spinning this nonsense about wars and Stepan? Wait, if Stepan went off to war, how old does that make you? More than 100. Grandma, are you in your right mind? Where's Marinka? Don't shout, Nikitushka. Everything I said is true, nothing made up. Grandma, you've completely lost it in your old age. Let's do this. Tell me where Marinka is now, and we'll all go to the city. We'll help you get into a hospital." "Don't want that. Then we'll bring you to live with us. Tell me where Marinka is, Grandma." Anna raised her eyes to her grandson, and he suddenly realized that her story wasn't just a tale. "Where is Marinka, Grandma?" Nikita whispered. "I gave Marinka to the witch. It was either you or her. Nikitushka, dear, run away. For God's sake, flee. Forget about that wild-haired girl. Leave before the sun sets. Even the icons won't protect me tonight. I've lived too long. But you must flee. I'm begging you." Anna wept, her voice rising to a cry. But Nikita pushed her away and ran outside, sprinting without direction. He only came to his senses by the river. He approached the water, washed his face, and suddenly saw Marinka in the water's reflection. He recoiled sharply, looked around, but there was no one else in sight. No sounds of the village, just the chirping of crickets in the grass. He sat there almost until dusk, replaying his grandmother's story over and over in his mind, trying to believe it. The story was too similar to a childhood fairy tale he might have read before. Therefore, he couldn't bring himself to accept this bizarre nonsense. The fog had already settled over the field, and Nikita felt a chill, deciding to head back. Maybe his grandmother had lost her mind, but she hadn't chased him with a knife, and home was safer than being by the river. The fog thickened, and Nikita became disoriented. Instead of the village, he ended up at a large pond. By the water sat the same black old woman who had stood under his grandmother's windows in the morning. She gave him a cunning look and squinted. Nikita felt a wave of cold wash over him, his feet rooted to the ground and refusing to move. Came on your own, did you? Ready to trade places with your beloved? Nikita's mouth went dry. The words stuck in his throat like stones. Come then. I've been waiting for you. The old woman's eyes gleamed malevolently, and with a wave of her hand, an eerie vision materialized. Behind her stood Marinka, drenched, her hair a sticky green mass, and her eyes vacant. Nikita instinctively stumbled backward and fell. He tried to rise, but his arms and legs refused to cooperate, as if they were filled with lead. Marinka drew closer, the old woman behind her howling. Come to me, my dear, come. No, Nikita shrieked in a high-pitched voice, but Marinka already loomed over him, cold and skeletal, entangling him with her limbs as he sank into darkness. Dude, I think we're lost. There's no village here. No, there is. Nikita sent the geotag. Look, there are the huts. Boys, I need to go to the bathroom. Whined the girl in the back seat. We're almost there, see? This place gives me the creeps. Are we really staying here? It's getting dark. I don't want to risk wrecking the car on these potholes in the dark. Look, these houses are rotted through. Nikita said his grandma lives here. Where does she live? In a burrow. Nikitala, Marinala. The fog was slowly creeping toward the village from the fields. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There are more interesting stories ahead.